Diabetes must be caught early to last a lifetime. The war against the silent disease. Hello, dear listeners. We are in the midst of a war against an invisible enemy. That enemy's name is diabetes. According to World Health Organization statistics, over 420 million people worldwide suffer from diabetes, and the more shocking fact is that about half of them are unaware of their condition. In Korea's case, according to National Health Insurance Service data, 1 in 7 people is either a diabetes patient or in a pre-diabetic state. This number increases every year. This is precisely why we call diabetes the silent epidemic. Let's examine the daily life of modern people. In the morning, we hurriedly head to work, grabbing sweet caffeinated drinks and bread for breakfast, solve lunch with fast food, and in the evening, we overeat with alcohol to relieve stress. In this lifestyle, our bodies are continuously sending warning signals, but those sounds are too quiet, or we're too busy to hear them. Here, let me add a somewhat cynical perspective. Our society has created an ironic situation where medical and scientific advances have extended average lifespan, but we spend that extended time suffering from chronic diseases. As a price for the convenience brought by modern civilization, we are fighting against diseases of civilization. Diabetes is no longer a disease only affecting the elderly. Recently, the incidence rate has been increasing among young people in their 20s and 30s. The human body has evolved over thousands of years, but our living environment has changed drastically in just a few decades. This mismatch disrupts our body's homeostasis and causes metabolic diseases like diabetes. Biologically, diabetes is a disease where the body's ability to regulate blood sugar is impaired due to problems with insulin production or function. Insulin is produced by beta cells in the pancreas and acts as a key that transports glucose in the blood into cells. When this process doesn't work smoothly, glucose accumulates excessively in the blood, causing various complications. However, there is a hopeful message. Diabetes is a disease that can be managed healthily for a lifetime if properly addressed only in its early stages. As French philosopher Michel Foucault said, "Our body and health are not simple biological facts, but fields where socio-economic power and cultural practices operate. Therefore, response to diabetes must go beyond simple medical approaches to include changes in lifestyle and social structure." Through this audiobook, we will face the silent enemy called diabetes and explore practical methods to overcome it together. The war against diabetes must be fought on various fronts, from individual daily life to social dimensions. Now, let's begin the war against the silent epidemic. Chapter 1. Modern Lifestyle. The perfect breeding ground for diabetes. Let's examine modern life in detail. We reluctantly wake up to alarm sounds in the morning, grab coffee and simple bread for breakfast, get stressed in traffic jams on the way to work. In the office, we sit all day, quickly solve lunch, and before we know it, evening comes as we're chased by meetings and work. After work, we have a drink to relieve fatigue, eat a late dinner, then lie on the sofa watching TV or smartphones before falling asleep. We face the next day without getting sufficient sleep while exposed to blue light. This lifestyle is particularly prominent in 3 occupational groups. First, the self-employed. They tend to have irregular eating patterns and depend on caffeine or sweet foods to soothe stress. They lack exercise due to standing for long periods, or conversely sitting for extended periods, and depending on their work environment, they may work late into the night, leading to late-night snacks and drinking. Second, drivers. Taxi, bus, and truck drivers sit in the same position for long periods and have irregular meal times due to irregular work hours. They frequently drink beverages high in sugar and caffeine to chase away drowsiness and depend on convenience store or rest stop food while traveling. Continuous stress and insufficient sleep increase the secretion of hormones like cortisol, raising insulin resistance. Third, creators. Writers, designers, programmers, and others engaged in creative activities easily forget meals or fluid intake when immersed in a flow state. They tend to sit in the same position for long periods, have irregular sleep cycles, and when chased by deadlines, often depend on instant foods or delivery meals. Let's scientifically examine why this modern lifestyle creates perfect conditions for diabetes development. According to research from the University of Edinburgh, chronic stress increases cortisol levels, increasing insulin resistance. Stress also disrupts the balance of appetite-regulating hormones, leptin and ghrelin, increasing cravings for high-calorie foods. Researchers at the University of Chicago found that when healthy adults slept only 4 to 5 hours a day for a week, insulin sensitivity decreased by about 30%. Sleep deprivation also causes imbalances in appetite-regulating hormones, leading to overeating and inappropriate food choices. Sedentary lifestyle reduces muscle glucose uptake. Muscle is the largest glucose consumer in our body, and especially during exercise, it can absorb glucose without insulin's help. However, according to research from the University of Melbourne, Australia, people who sit more than 8 hours a day have about a 90% increased risk of developing diabetes compared to those who don't. Excessive consumption of processed foods and sugary drinks continuously stimulates insulin secretion, causing beta cell fatigue and functional decline. Excessive fructose intake increases fat synthesis in the liver, raising the risk of non-alcoholic fatty liver disease and insulin resistance. Environmental toxins can also increase diabetes risk. Endocrine disruptors like bisphenol A can interfere with insulin signaling and damage beta cell function. These substances exist throughout daily life in plastic containers, food inner coatings, receipt paper, etc. Here, let me add a somewhat cynical perspective. Our society has a contradictory structure that sacrifices individual health for productivity and economic growth. Companies encourage employees' long working hours while complaining about increased employee health management costs. They continuously produce and market products that provide convenience and immediate satisfaction, while, on the other hand, showing a hypocritical attitude of emphasizing individual self-management and responsibility. As philosopher Hannah Arendt pointed out, modern people have fallen to become laboring animals, losing room for true action and thinking in the endless cycle of production and consumption. This structural pressure makes it difficult for individuals to choose healthy lifestyles. Nevertheless, diabetes is not an inevitable result of modern lifestyle, but a disease we can consciously respond to and prevent. In various occupations and living environments, we can start small changes for our health. Self-employed people can set regular meal times and prepare healthy snacks in their stores. Drivers can do short stretches during break times and develop habits of drinking sufficient water. Creators can set timers to change positions at regular intervals and receive reminders to take in fluids. These small changes will become the first step in fighting against the silent epidemic called diabetes. In the next chapter, we will delve deeper into the essence and mechanisms of diabetes. Chapter 2: The Science of Diabetes: Understanding the Silent Pathology. To properly understand diabetes, we need to know our body's energy metabolism system. The human body is like a complex biochemical factory. The food we consume becomes raw material for this factory, ultimately converting into adenosine triphosphate, the energy source for cells. Carbohydrates are broken down into glucose during digestion. Glucose is transported throughout the body via blood and used as the main energy source for cells. However, for glucose to enter cells, a key called insulin is needed. Insulin is secreted by beta cells in the pancreas, and when blood glucose concentration increases, secretion increases in response. Diabetes is broadly divided into type 1 and type 2. Type 1 diabetes is an autoimmune disease where the immune system attacks pancreatic beta cells, stopping insulin production. It mainly develops at a young age and must be managed for life with insulin injections. In contrast, type 2 diabetes refers to a condition where the body develops resistance to insulin or doesn't produce sufficient insulin. About 90 to 95% of all diabetes patients correspond to type 2 diabetes. It mainly develops in adults, but recently it's increasing in children and adolescents. Recent studies show that diabetes is not simply a sugar disease, but part of a complex metabolic syndrome. Insulin resistance, chronic inflammation, changes in gut microbiome, hormonal imbalances, etc., all participate in diabetes development. Particularly, research on gut microbiome is actively progressing recently, and it's being revealed that increases or decreases of specific microorganisms are related to insulin resistance. Diabetes diagnosis is made through fasting glucose, oral glucose tolerance test, glycated hemoglobin, etc. If fasting glucose is 126 milligrams per deciliter or higher, or glycated hemoglobin is 6.5% or higher, it's diagnosed as diabetes. If fasting glucose is 100 to 125 milligrams per deciliter, or glycated hemoglobin is 5.7 to 6.4%, it's called pre-diabetic state, and appropriate intervention at this stage is a crucial point that can prevent progression to diabetes. Diabetes complications can be divided into microvascular and macrovascular complications. Microvascular complications include diabetic retinopathy, a major cause of blindness, nephropathy, a major cause of kidney failure, and neuropathy causing pain, sensory loss, autonomic nervous system disorders, etc. Macrovascular complications include coronary artery disease, stroke, peripheral vascular disease, etc. These complications often have a greater impact on patients' quality of life and lifespan than diabetes itself. Genetic factors also play an important role in diabetes development. If there are diabetes patients among direct family members, the risk of getting diabetes increases 2 to 6 times compared to those without such family history. However, according to twin study results, when one identical twin, genetically identical, gets type 2 diabetes, the probability of the other getting the same disease is about 70%. This suggests that not only genetic factors, but also environmental factors are important. To understand the fundamental causes of diabetes, we need to examine the evolutionary mismatch with modern living environments. According to the thrifty gene hypothesis, human genes have evolved for tens of thousands of years in environments with food scarcity, so they're programmed to store and conserve as much energy as possible. However, in modern society, caloric excess and physical inactivity have become routine. In this environment, our genetic characteristics that were originally advantageous for survival have instead increased the risk of metabolic diseases like diabetes. Here, let me add a somewhat cynical perspective. Modern medicine tends to invest more resources in drug development and sales rather than disease treatment. Although diabetes can be prevented and managed through lifestyle changes, the pharmaceutical industry mainly focuses on developing drugs that control blood sugar. This is an approach that manages symptoms rather than fundamentally solving diseases, showing the contradiction of modern medical systems that prioritize short-term profits over long-term health. From a philosophical perspective, diabetes reflects the divided existence of modern people. As French philosopher Maurice Merleau-Ponty pointed out, humans are essentially embodied beings. However, in modern society, we often become alienated from our own bodies, ignoring bodily signals and living life. We ignore even basic bodily signals like fatigue, thirst, and hunger, living according to artificial rhythms. Diabetes can be seen as a result of this divided way of existence. Understanding diabetes accurately is the first step in effective prevention and management. This disease is not simply a disease with too much sugar, but the result of the comprehensive impact of modern lifestyle and environment on our body's sophisticated metabolic system. In the next chapter, we'll examine why early detection of diabetes is important and what signals we should pay attention to. Chapter 3: Early detection of diabetes, reading the silent signals. Diabetes is often called the silent killer. Many people only discover their diabetes patients after serious complications have occurred. But why is early detection so important? According to American Diabetes Association research, type 2 diabetes patients likely had the disease progressing for at least 4 to 7 years before diagnosis. During this period, blood vessels and nerves were gradually being damaged, but symptoms weren't apparent due to the body's compensatory mechanisms. According to the UK prospective diabetes study results, 50% of patients already had complications at the time of diabetes diagnosis. This means bodily damage was progressing long before symptoms were felt. In early stages of diabetes, patients often don't recognize their condition because the body adapts to high blood sugar levels. However, if appropriate intervention occurs during this period, it's often possible to normalize blood sugar through lifestyle improvements alone without medication. Moreover, intervention during the pre-diabetic stage is even more effective. According to the US Diabetes Prevention Program study, intensive lifestyle improvements at this stage could reduce diabetes development risk by about 58%. This is much higher than the 31% reduction effect of metformin medication. To detect diabetes early, we should pay attention to the following initial warning signals. First, frequent urination. The reason is that kidneys produce more urine to excrete excess glucose. Second, abnormal thirst. The reason is increased thirst due to dehydration from frequent urination. Third, unexplained weight loss. The reason is that cells can't use glucose, so they start using fat and muscle as energy sources instead. Fourth, persistent fatigue. The reason is fatigue occurs because cells can't efficiently use energy. Fifth, blurred vision. The reason is high blood sugar affects the eye's lens. Sixth, delayed wound healing. The reason is high blood sugar impairs immune function and blood circulation. Seventh, recurring infections, particularly frequent infections of skin, gums, bladder, etc. Eighth, numbness or loss of sensation in hands and feet. The reason is high blood sugar can affect nerves, causing peripheral neuropathy. And ninth, skin pigmentation. Dark skin patches may appear particularly on the back of the neck, armpits, elbows, etc. If any of these symptoms are present, it's important to see a healthcare professional for blood sugar testing. However, the most ideal approach is to monitor blood sugar levels through regular health checkups before symptoms appear. The World Health Organization recommends diabetes screening tests at least every 3 years for those 45 years or older, or those with risk factors like overweight or obesity, family history of diabetes, high blood pressure, cardiovascular disease history, etc. The Korean Diabetes Association particularly recommends more frequent testing when risk factors are present, considering the constitutional characteristics of Asians. Here, let me add a somewhat cynical perspective. The modern medical system has a distorted incentive structure that allocates far more resources to disease treatment than prevention. Doctors receive more compensation for treating diseases than spending time on prevention counseling. And pharmaceutical companies invest in developing treatments rather than prevention methods. This is despite the fact that keeping healthy people from getting sick is much more cost-effective than treating sick people. Also, Due to rising medical costs, many people tend to postpone regular checkups, thinking since there are no symptoms yet. This is like not visiting a repair shop until a car completely breaks down. As a result, more serious and expensive treatment becomes necessary. From a philosophical perspective, this reflects modern society's present bias. Present bias in behavioral economics refers to the cognitive tendency for people to assign higher value to present benefits than future benefits. To avoid immediate discomfort, we naturally tend to postpone such preventive measures in situations without immediate feedback. Philosopher Albert Camus' concept of absurdity is also relevant here. The human tendency to seek essential meaning in a universe that doesn't provide meaning is similar to living in an illusion of invulnerability until we face opposing explicit evidence in the context of health. From a neurobiological perspective, our brains aren't well designed to respond to slow, gradual threats. Our threat detection system evolved to respond to immediate dangers like predators and doesn't respond well to silent killers like diabetes that develop over years. Neuroscientist Daniel Kahneman explains this as the difference between our fast, intuitive, System 1 thinking and slow, deliberate System 2 thinking. Early detection requires a paradigm shift from reactive medicine to proactive preventive medicine. Instead of waiting until the body sounds alarm bells through symptoms, we should actively monitor health indicators. With advances in self-monitoring technology, it's now possible to observe blood sugar changes in real time through devices like continuous glucose monitors. In the next chapter, we'll learn about nutrition and diet, the most fundamental axis of diabetes management. Chapter 4: Nutritional Revolution: The Wisdom of the Table in Managing Blood Sugar. The relationship between food and us has undergone dramatic changes over the past century. What was once a simple necessity for survival has now become a complex web intertwining cultural practices, social rituals, emotional comfort, and commercial interests. In diabetes prevention and management, nutrition is the cornerstone of effective intervention. The science of nutrition and blood sugar management has advanced considerably in recent decades. Blood sugar control isn't simply about avoiding sugar, but includes sophisticated understanding of how various foods affect our metabolism, hormonal responses, and even gut microbiome. Basically, carbohydrates, proteins, and fats affect blood sugar differently. Carbohydrates have the most immediate and pronounced effect on blood sugar levels. Proteins have a moderate effect, and fats have the least direct effect. The glycemic index, GI, concept was developed to measure how quickly foods raise blood sugar levels. High GI foods like white bread, white rice, and potatoes cause rapid blood sugar spikes. In contrast, low GI foods like legumes, most fruits, and non-starchy vegetables bring more gradual blood sugar increases. The glycemic load, GL, concept further refines this by considering both the glycemic index of food and the amount of carbohydrates consumed. Recent groundbreaking research has shown that individual responses to the same food can vary dramatically. According to research from the Weizmann Institute of Science, people can show completely different blood sugar responses to identical meals. These personalized responses are influenced by gut microbiome composition, sleep patterns, physical activity, stress levels, genetic factors, etc. This discovery has led to the emerging field of personalized nutrition. Despite this complexity, there are several evidence-based nutritional principles that can help most people effectively manage blood sugar. First, prioritizing food order. Starting meals with non-starchy vegetables first, then consuming proteins and fats, and finally eating carbohydrates can significantly reduce post-meal blood sugar spikes. This approach slows gastric emptying and makes glucose release into the bloodstream more gradual. Second, consuming fiber. Soluble fiber forms gel-like substances in the digestive tract, slowing glucose absorption and improving insulin sensitivity. Insoluble fiber contributes to gut health, which is increasingly recognized as an important factor in glucose metabolism. High-fiber foods include legumes, whole grains, vegetables, and certain fruits. Third, controlling carbohydrate intake. The important thing here is that low-carbohydrate diets have shown effectiveness in blood sugar management, but not everyone needs extreme restrictions. Often the quality of carbohydrates is more important than quantity. Choosing fiber-rich complex carbohydrates over refined carbohydrates can make a significant difference. Fourth, including quality protein. Protein consumption stimulates insulin secretion, but doesn't significantly raise blood sugar levels. Protein also helps maintain muscle mass, which is important for glucose processing. Lean meat, fish, eggs, dairy products, legumes, and nuts are quality protein sources. Fifth, consuming healthy fats. Contrary to old nutritional advice, healthy fats are essential for blood sugar management. Fats slow digestion and reduce the glycemic impact of meals. Healthy fats found in olive oil, avocados, nuts, seeds, and fatty fish can improve insulin sensitivity. Sixth, staying hydrated. Dehydration can concentrate blood sugar levels and impair insulin function. Water should be the primary beverage, and sugary drinks should be minimized or eliminated. Fruit juices can also cause significant blood sugar spikes due to lack of fiber and high sugar content. Seventh, considering meal timing. Intermittent fasting or time-restricted eating has shown promise in improving insulin sensitivity. By restricting meals to an 8 to 10 hour window, the body has more time for cellular repair processes that can benefit metabolic health. And eighth, utilizing vinegar. Several studies show that consuming vinegar before or with carbohydrate-containing meals reduces post-meal blood sugar response. This effect is attributed to acetic acid, which can slow gastric emptying and inhibit digestive enzymes. Here, let me add a somewhat cynical perspective. The modern food industry has built a system that prioritizes profit over health. Most processed foods in supermarkets are designed to be shelf-stable, addictive, and cheap to produce, rather than beneficial for consumer health. Many products marketed as healthy foods, such as low-fat yogurt, fruit juices, and granola bars, are actually full of hidden sugars and refined carbohydrates that rapidly spike blood sugar. Food companies often sponsor or influence nutritional research to produce results favorable to their products. Also, while exaggerated claims about superfoods or specific nutrients abound, the most basic nutritional principles receive little attention because they're too simple or unprofitable. This adds confusion for the general public accessing health information and often leads to dependence on extreme diets or unnecessary supplements. Philosopher Michael Pollan proposed simple but powerful dietary guidelines in response to the complexity of the modern food system. Eat real food, not too much, mostly plants. This simple principle encompasses both scientific evidence and traditional dietary wisdom. In the next chapter, we'll learn about physical activity and exercise, another important axis of diabetes management. Chapter 5. The pharmacology of movement, how exercise controls blood sugar. The concept of exercise as medicine is not a simple metaphor. Scientific research shows that appropriate physical activity can have physiological effects as powerful as any medication, particularly in diabetes prevention and management. The role of exercise can be more extensive and effective than any drug. The muscles in the human body are not simply tools for movement. Muscle is one of the largest endocrine organs in our body, secreting various substances called myokines during exercise that positively affect the entire body. Muscle is also the largest glucose storage and consumer in the human body, playing a key role in blood sugar management. Exercise's impact on blood sugar management occurs through two main mechanisms. First, acute effects. During and immediately after exercise, muscles can absorb glucose without insulin. This is because muscle contraction moves glucose transporters called GLUT4 to the cell membrane. Thanks to this mechanism, even people with insulin resistance can effectively lower blood sugar through exercise. Second, chronic adaptation. Regular exercise improves insulin sensitivity, increases mitochondrial density, and maintains or increases muscle mass. These changes work favorably for long-term blood sugar management. Extensive research has been conducted on ideal exercise types and intensity for diabetes management. Generally, combined exercise programs including both aerobic and resistance exercise have proven most effective. The American Diabetes Association recommends at least 150 minutes of moderate intensity aerobic exercise per week and 2 to 3 sessions of resistance exercise. Here, let me add a somewhat cynical perspective. Modern society has evolved toward reducing physical effort through technological advancement, but as a result, we're in the ironic situation of having to do artificial activities called exercise to maintain health. In the past, daily life itself provided sufficient physical activity. But today, most work is sedentary. Transportation is done by vehicle, and various appliances handle household chores. Also, modern society promotes a distorted view that sees exercise mainly as a means of weight loss or appearance improvement. Media and social networks emphasize extreme physical changes or external achievements, but invisible health benefits like blood sugar control, insulin sensitivity improvement, and cardiovascular health enhancement receive relatively little attention. From a philosophical perspective, exercise goes beyond a simple health management tool to reflect essential aspects of human existence. Ancient Greek philosophers emphasized harmony between body and mind, and Aristotle explained the importance of appropriate exercise through the concept of moderation. Nietzsche said, "Sitting is my sin." Neither kneeling in prayer nor proper limb activity, emphasizing human physical vitality and dynamism. Modern philosopher David Leonhardt introduced the concept of the paradox of effort. This is that humans pursue comfort and ease, but true satisfaction and happiness are often obtained through some degree of effort and challenge. Exercise is a representative example of this paradox. It may be uncomfortable and difficult at first, but ultimately brings greater energy and satisfaction. Beyond the medical and physiological benefits of exercise, regular physical activity provides various psychological benefits, including stress reduction, sleep improvement, cognitive function enhancement, and mood elevation. This is a good example showing the importance of mind-body connection, which we'll cover in the next chapter. Chapter 6: Mind-body connection, the impact of stress, sleep, and mental health on blood sugar. While the importance of nutrition and exercise in diabetes management is widely known, the influence of mental and emotional factors tends to be relatively overlooked. However, recent studies show the enormous impact that stress, sleep, and mental health have on blood sugar control. This suggests that body and mind are never separate domains, but an integrated system in constant interaction. First, let's examine the relationship between stress and blood sugar. In stressful situations, our body initiates a series of physiological responses called the fight or flight response. During this process, stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline are secreted, releasing glucose from the liver and temporarily increasing insulin resistance. This is an evolutionary mechanism for the body to quickly mobilize energy to respond to danger. However, in modern society, chronic stress has become a bigger problem than acute stress. Continuous stress from deadlines, financial pressure, interpersonal conflicts, etc., keeps cortisol levels chronically high, increasing insulin resistance and interfering with blood sugar control. According to American Psychological Association research, chronic stress can increase type 2 diabetes development risk by up to 2 times. Stress also affects blood sugar indirectly. When stressed, people often resort to emotional eating or seek carbohydrate-rich comfort foods. Stress also reduces exercise motivation, degrades sleep quality, and can increase alcohol consumption. All these factors make blood sugar management more difficult. Next, the relationship between sleep and blood sugar also deserves attention. Sleep deprivation is a major risk factor for diabetes, interfering with blood sugar control through various mechanisms. First, increased insulin resistance. Just one night of sleep deprivation can reduce insulin sensitivity by up to 25%. According to University of Chicago research, when healthy adults slept only 4 hours a day for 4 days, their bodies showed blood sugar control disorders similar to a pre-diabetic state. Second, appetite hormone changes. Sleep deprivation increases the appetite-stimulating hormone ghrelin and decreases the satiety-inducing hormone leptin. This leads to consuming about 300 more calories the next day, with particularly increased cravings for sugar and carbohydrates. Third, increased stress hormones. Sleep deprivation raises cortisol levels, causing all the blood sugar problems related to stress described earlier. And fourth, circadian rhythm disruption. Irregular sleep patterns and circadian rhythm disruption directly affect insulin secretion and function. Shift workers or those experiencing social jet lag have higher diabetes risk. Finally, the relationship between mental health and blood sugar is also important. Depression and anxiety commonly appear in diabetes patients, and this is not simply coexisting conditions, but physiologically connected problems. 1. Bidirectional relationship between depression and diabetes. First, diabetes patients have higher risk of developing depression, and conversely, people with depression have about 60% increased risk of developing diabetes. These two conditions share several common pathways, including inflammation, hormonal imbalance, and lifestyle factors. 2. Emotion regulation and blood sugar. Strong emotions promote stress hormone secretion, affecting blood sugar. Effective emotion regulation ability can help reduce blood sugar fluctuations. Finally, 3. Self-efficacy and self-management. Mental health problems often reduce self-efficacy, weakening diabetes, self-management ability. Diabetes patients with depression may have more difficulty with medication adherence, blood sugar monitoring, and following healthy diet and exercise plans. Here, let me add a somewhat cynical perspective. The modern medical system is still trapped in Cartesian dualism that treats body and mind as separate domains. Doctors often focus only on objective indicators like blood sugar levels and don't consider patients' mental and emotional states. Pharmaceutical companies emphasize drug-centered solutions rather than soft factors like sleep, stress, and mental health, limiting investment in lifestyle changes and mental health support that are less profitable than medical interventions. Also, modern society values productivity as a virtue and tends to regard sufficient sleep or stress management as luxuries. Cultural attitudes like, "You can sleep when you're dead," encourage pursuing achievement while sacrificing health. From a philosophical perspective, an integrated approach to body and mind aligns with Eastern philosophy's long tradition. For example, Chinese medicine has emphasized balance and harmony between physical, mental, and environmental factors for thousands of years. It's encouraging that Western medicine is gradually accepting this integrated perspective. Understanding and utilizing the mind-body connection can be a powerful tool in diabetes prevention and management. In the next chapter, we'll learn about modern technologies and tools that can support this integrated approach. Chapter 7. modern technology and tools, the revolution in diabetes management. Technological advancement has brought revolutionary changes to diabetes management. Just a few decades ago, blood sugar monitoring was only possible during hospital visits, and diet and exercise tracking had to be recorded by hand. Today, there are various technological tools providing real-time data, immediate feedback, and personalized insights. At the center of modern diabetes management technology is the Continuous Glucose Monitor, CGM. CGM measures blood sugar levels every 5 minutes through a small sensor inserted under the skin and transmits this data to smartphones or dedicated receivers. While it was primarily a device for type 1 diabetes patients in the past, it has recently expanded for use by type 2 diabetes patients and even health management enthusiasts without diabetes. The true value of CGM goes beyond simple data collection to provide deep insights into the relationship between individual lifestyle and blood sugar. Users can obtain information such as, first, food reactions. They can see in real time how different foods and food combinations affect blood sugar. For example, they can see how blood sugar response differs when the same amount of carbohydrates is consumed with proteins, fats, and fiber. Second, exercise effects. They can track immediate and delayed effects of various types and intensities of physical activity on blood sugar. Third, stress and sleep impact. They can see how stressful meetings or sleepless nights affect blood sugar levels. Fourth, circadian patterns. They can detect blood sugar changes according to circadian rhythms, like the dawn phenomenon. And fifth, real-time alerts. They can receive warnings when blood sugar becomes too high or low, allowing timely action. Smartphone apps and wearable devices complement CGM data to enable more comprehensive health management. Diet tracking apps monitor nutrient intake, activity trackers measure exercise amounts, and sleep monitoring devices provide data on sleep quality and quantity. By integrating all this information, users can better understand correlations between their health behaviors and bodily responses. With advances in artificial intelligence and machine learning, these devices are providing increasingly personalized analysis and predictions. For example, some CGM systems analyze user data to identify personal response patterns to specific foods or activities and provide customized recommendations based on this. Telehealth and remote monitoring are also important technological advances in diabetes management. Patients can share data with healthcare providers and receive real-time or asynchronous consultations without physically meeting. This provides great benefits, especially for patients living in rural areas or areas with limited medical access. Digital health coaching and virtual diabetes prevention programs are also increasing. These mimic the effects of traditional face-to-face programs while providing accessibility to a broader population. Digital versions of the US Diabetes Prevention Program showed weight loss and diabetes risk reduction effects similar to traditional face-to-face programs. Mobile health apps remind about medication taking, provide incentives for behavior change, and offer social support through virtual communities. Some apps introduce gamification elements to make healthy habits more fun and sustainable. Here, let me add a somewhat cynical perspective. While these technological advances provide many benefits, they also raise new problems. Data overload makes it difficult for users to distinguish useful information from simple noise. Also, excessive self-tracking can cause health anxiety and compulsive behaviors. Furthermore, these advanced technologies are often expensive and provide biased benefits to technology-savvy populations. This can worsen existing health inequalities. Devices like CGM are expensive equipment that's difficult for many people to access without insurance coverage. From a philosophical perspective, the spread of technological health tracking connects to Foucault's concept of biopower. individuals are encouraged to continuously monitor their bodies, quantify data, and optimize. This emphasizes personal responsibility for health, while potentially overlooking social, environmental, and structural causes of health problems. Despite these challenges, technology can be a powerful tool for diabetes management when properly utilized. The important thing is not blindly pursuing technology, but adapting technology to individual needs and circumstances. In the next chapter, we'll examine the social aspects of diabetes management and the importance of support networks. Chapter 8: Sustainable Change: Diabetes Management as a Lifelong Journey. Diabetes management is not a short-term diet or temporary lifestyle change, but a lifelong journey. When initial enthusiasm and motivation fade, how can we maintain healthy habits and build a foundation for long-term success? The psychology of change is an important factor in diabetes management. According to behavioral science research, sustainable change generally goes through the following stages: awareness, consideration, preparation, action, maintenance, and finally, integration, where behavior becomes part of identity. Common obstacles that may be encountered on the diabetes journey include burnout, emotional exhaustion from the burden of continuous self-management, diabetes distress, frustration, anger, guilt related to disease management, life environment changes, moving, new job, relationship changes, social pressure, family gatherings, work events, holidays, lack of motivation, decreased initial motivation over time, the paradox of success, feeling less need for self-management when blood sugar improves, etc. From a philosophical perspective, the sustainability of diabetes management is a matter of balance, adaptation, and essential values. The middle way, an important concept in Eastern philosophy, presents a balanced path toward health and well-being without extreme asceticism or indulgence. This means finding a sustainable middle ground between strict perfectionism and complete abandonment. The teachings of ancient Stoic philosophers are also relevant. They emphasize the importance of wisdom in distinguishing what is under our control and what is not. We cannot control every moment's blood sugar fluctuations, but we can control choices like eating, exercise, medication taking, and healthcare utilization. By focusing our energy on controllable areas, we can reduce unnecessary frustration and burnout. Finally, it's helpful to view sustainable diabetes management as a work in progress. Not a perfectly linear journey, but a continuous process of learning, adaptation, and growth. Through this perspective, we can focus on the bigger picture of long-term health and well-being without being overwhelmed by short-term frustrations or setbacks. A practical action plan for sustainable diabetes management is as follows. First, establishing a personalized plan. Develop a plan that fits your specific situation, preferences, cultural background, and values. Customized strategies are more sustainable than standardized approaches. Second, building a support system. Develop a support network consisting of family, friends, colleagues, health coaches, support groups, etc. When you have people around you who understand and support your goals, the possibility of sustainable change increases. Third, building resilience. Anticipate challenges and setbacks and create specific plans to respond to them. Resilience is not the ability to avoid failure, but to recover quickly from failure. Fourth, developing a rhythm of reflection and adjustment. Regularly assess progress and adjust approaches as needed. Setting weekly, monthly, and quarterly reflection time is helpful. And fifth, celebrating small successes. Don't just look at big goals, but recognize and celebrate small achievements. This helps maintain motivation and strengthen positive emotions. Diabetes management is a never-ending journey, but with the right mindset, tools, and support system, this journey can become an experience of strength and possibility rather than limitation and deprivation. Through sustainable change, life with diabetes can become a life of flourishing, not just surviving. Chapter 9: Family and Community. The social aspects of diabetes management. Diabetes is often regarded as a personal disease, but its prevention and management can never be completely solved by individual effort alone. Family, friends, colleagues, and the broader community all play important roles in the diabetes journey. Family influence is enormous in diabetes prevention and management. Research shows that when one family member transitions to a healthy lifestyle, this often has ripple effects on other family members. For example, since healthy eating usually occurs as a family unit, one person's dietary changes can affect the entire family's eating habits. The effectiveness of family support has been proven through various studies. According to research published in the American Diabetes Association Journal, diabetes patients with active family participation showed improved blood sugar control, enhanced psychological well-being, and increased self-management behaviors compared to patients without such participation. Specific ways families can support diabetes. Patients include: first, shared meal preparation and healthy eating habits. Rather than preparing separate special meals for diabetes patients, it's more effective for the entire family to enjoy healthy meals together. This reduces patient isolation and provides health benefits for all family members. Second, physical activity together. Family walks, bike rides, or sports activities make exercise more enjoyable and sustainable. This is also an opportunity to strengthen family bonds. Third, providing emotional support. Providing a safe space to talk about frustrations and challenges in diabetes management is very important. Listening, empathy, and encouragement greatly affect patient psychological well-being. Fourth, sharing education and awareness. When family members learn about diabetes together, they can better support patients and reduce diabetes risk for other family members. And fifth, participating in medical visits together. Accompanying doctor visits helps family members better understand treatment plans and share important observations with healthcare professionals. However, not all families are always supportive. Sometimes family dysfunctional support, such as wrong advice, excessive monitoring, or inappropriate dietary enforcement, can cause more harm than help. It's important to set healthy boundaries and educate family members to accurately understand diabetes and its management. Beyond family, the broader community also plays an important role in diabetes prevention and management. Workplaces, schools, religious institutions, neighborhood organizations, etc., all provide environments that can support or hinder healthy lifestyles. The workplace, where modern people spend most of their waking hours, greatly affects diabetes prevention and management. Health-centered workplace culture can include elements such as providing healthy food options, creating physical activity opportunities, operating stress management programs, supporting health checkups and education, etc. Schools and educational environments also play important roles in forming healthy habits from childhood. Nutrition education, regular physical activity, and healthy school meals can all contribute to diabetes prevention. Religious and spiritual communities occupy important parts of many people's lives. These communities can encourage healthy lifestyles and provide emotional support. Through communal meals, exercise programs, health education, and spiritual approaches to health, religious communities can support diabetes, prevention, and management. Diabetes support groups are particularly powerful social support mechanisms. Connecting with others who share the same experience provides emotional comfort and opportunities to learn practical tips and strategies. Online forums, social media groups, and face-to-face meetings can all provide important information and support. From a philosophical perspective, Humans are essentially social beings, and our health is deeply influenced by the relationships and communities surrounding us. Ancient Greek philosophers defined humans as social animals, and Aristotle suggested that we need meaningful connections with others to flourish. Modern research also supports these philosophical insights. Harvard University's famous happiness study followed people for over 80 years and found that one of the strongest predictors of health and longevity is strong social connections. Often, maintaining imperfect lifestyles within supportive relationships leads to better health outcomes than maintaining healthy lifestyles in isolation. Based on these insights, diabetes prevention and management can be reconstituted not simply as a matter of personal responsibility, but as a matter of social responsibility and collective effort. This is a together approach where the burden of diabetes can be greatly reduced when families, workplaces, schools, and entire communities create healthy environments and encourage each other through supportive relationships. Conclusion: Awakening from the silent disease to action. Through this audiobook journey, we have explored various aspects of this silent disease, from the science of diabetes to practical strategies for prevention and management. The most important message is that diabetes is a condition that can be managed if caught early, and in some cases may even be reversible. Diabetes is no longer a disease only affecting the elderly. Modern lifestyles put people of all ages at risk. Particularly, occupational groups like the self-employed, drivers, and creators face unique challenges. However, recognizing these risk factors is the first step toward change. Diabetes management is not simply about reducing sugar. It requires a holistic approach including dietary habits, physical activity, stress management, sleep, social connections, and collaboration with healthcare professionals. Each element interacts with others to contribute to overall well-being and blood sugar control. Here, let me add a somewhat cynical perspective. Our society often tends to place responsibility for health entirely on individuals. The simple message to eat healthier and exercise more ignores the processed food industry, car-centered urban design, stressful workplace culture, and other structural factors that make healthy choices difficult. True change requires both personal determination and systemic reform. Philosopher Aristotle said, "We are what we repeatedly do." By developing healthy habits, we lay the foundation for living healthier, more vibrant lives beyond simply managing diabetes. When starting or reactivating your health journey, remember to focus on progress, not perfection. Mistakes and setbacks are part of the process. What's important is having the courage to always start again. Finally, remember that you are not taking this journey alone. Seek support from family, friends, healthcare professionals, and others who share similar experiences. The power of shared wisdom and encouragement is enormous. To quote from the Bible, Philippians 4:13 says, "I can do all things through him who gives me strength." This reminds us of the spirit of resilience and hope needed in the journey of diabetes management. It reminds us that we don't face this challenge alone, but can move forward relying on our inner strength and a greater support network. Diabetes may be a silent disease, but we now have the knowledge and tools to break that silence and take informed action. Catching it early to protect for life. This is the key to understanding and managing diabetes. May good fortune accompany your journey toward health and well-being. If this content was helpful to you, we would appreciate it if you could subscribe to our YouTube channel. By clicking the subscribe button and setting notifications, you can receive inspiring content like this without missing out. We look forward to meeting you again with another topic in the next audiobook. Thank you.